at the time, him and his brother, they opened a gym, a kickboxing gym. They're both world champion kickboxers. Tom, which was one of the brothers, went on to compete. I don't think he actually competed at the Olympics. He was on the Olympic team for Taekwondo. So very, very skilled at what they do. Both of them in their rights, Tom and Frank, world champion kickboxers. They opened a gym local to me. And at the time I was into the gym. I've always been into lifting weights, or ever since the age of 18. I actually joined a gym on my 18th birthday.
Wow.
Started training. So I must have been about 21. Probably 21 at this time, maybe 22. And you know how it starts, like, oh yeah, I'll just come down one day a week, do a bit of fitness. But you get the gloves on, you start throwing the punches, you start seeing yourself improve, you start seeing your fitness get better. And then you start seeing everyone else sparring, you start sparring, you see people out competing and doing fights, and you go with the team, you watch it and you think, oh, I'd like to have a go at that, I always like to test myself, or I always have to be working towards something to make something worthwhile, and it helps me stay on track as well. I've always found that if I look back in my life, every time I've completed something, I move on. Yeah. And what I mean by that, when I can relate it back to my career, is I started as a plumber and did a plumbing apprenticeship. As soon as I finished the apprenticeship, I was like, okay, well, what's next? Where can I go now? And then I went into engineering, mechanical and electrical engineering, which was, in my eyes at that point, a step up from being someone that was on the construction site using the tools. I was now producing the drawings and doing the specs behind what people were installing on the construction sites. Finished that, got my university degree, and then I'm like, what now? Because I have to be working towards stuff. And I've found that being a business owner, you're never done. You're never complete.
That's true.
Same with weights, same with boxing. You can always get better. And that's why I think I'm gravitated to those things. Maybe it's the same for you, I don't know. But all three of those things I enjoy a lot. To get back to the boxing, yeah, you see other people having fights. You think, I'd actually like to have a go at that. You start training. Had a couple of fights. They were more like these open mat competitions, right?
Yeah.
So there's like jiu-jitsu on one mat, there's kickboxing on another. It's very sort of entry level, it's really just for people to turn up, you weigh in and you just fight someone from another gym.
Yeah.
It was only a few rounds. It might have only been 2 or 3 rounds. It wasn't much. And that's kind of how I started, and then it developed from there. I had a couple of unlicensed fights. So unlicensed boxing, it runs alongside amateur boxing, but it's not recognized as being amateur boxing. It's slightly different. But you have to train it's my understanding, you have to train at a gym that is recognized by the amateur. Yeah. By the English Boxing Federation, I guess. And then I joined another gym that I was training at alongside Whitstable Kickboxing, which was where I started, in anticipation for a fight I had coming up. And again, it was another unlicensed fight. So I was training at both gyms. And the second gym that I went to was solely a boxing gym, amateur gym, called Pedge Boxing in Margate. And there was a few really, really skilled fighters there. They were a very, very good, reputable amateur gym, and they're still there now. I was fighting guys that, I don't know their exact records, but like 16-1, 25-3,
wow.
Like just like very, very good experienced guys. Like there's guys, a couple of names would be Cameron Briggs and Lewis. I can't remember Lewis's surname, but these are like small guys, right? They fight at 60 kilos, 65 kilo. It's like being hit by a train. These guys were just so slick in the way that they moved and the way that they pulled the power through in their punches. And there was another guy there that was similar weight to me called Danny Maslak, and they all were always getting gyms come in and other people to spar. So that for me was like, wow, these guys are really good, and I'm sparring them every other day as well as running every other day, and I got very good very, very quickly. And I won the fight that I had after training there, and that kind of got me a buzz for it. I was like, this gym, if I want to be an amateur, I need to train here. As much as I got, Tom and Frank are very, very good trainers, but they were a kickboxing gym, and now and then they did unlicensed boxing fights. But I got that buzz, and like I said about what's next, wanting to be I was like, right, amateur, that's the next step for me. That's where I can really test myself. Wow. And unfortunately, I got in the best shape of my life. I cut down from 100 kilos to 90 because in amateurs, 91 kilos, anything above that, you're super heavyweight. So I dropped down. That's where I started intermittent fasting, which I still do today. And yeah, got ready to fight and got into the best shape of my life, and also the best I ever was at boxing. And then COVID came, and even still, throughout COVID, I was running every other day. I bought a bag, hooked it up in the garden. I was doing bag work. I bought some pads. Me and my brother were doing pad work. Was in such good shape. You know, I was going out and doing hill sprints for fun. It's crazy. Wow. And then I almost had this realization during COVID, which is when I started my first online business, got into high ticket drop shipping. I was like, I love boxing, but it's not, you know, I have to be realistic. I'm 24 now. It's not, I'm not, my goal isn't to be a pro fighter. It was something that I started because I enjoyed it, and I got hooked on it because you can never
it's addicting,
complete it. Exactly.
It's addicting.
But then I almost had this realization. I'm like, I'm running almost every other day. I'm sparring every other day. I'm intermittent fasting. I'm keeping my weight at 90 kilos. I'm not well, I probably was drinking now and then, but you know, all of these things. And it's like, I'm putting all of these restrictions on my life and all this time and effort and energy when it's not really more than a hobby for me in here. And I decided at that point to put all of that energy into business.
Yeah.
And getting my business up off the ground. And in some ways, I think it was just a necessary sacrifice. Could I have done both? Yeah, probably. If I really wanted to, I probably could have done both.
For sure.
But at that time, I made that decision, and you know, done a little bits of sparring since then. But that was it, really. That's the journey. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. One thing that I think boxing prepares you for is business. You could compare it because you're doing the same thing day to day, the same type of training. You're going through the same motions day to day for a shot at getting in that square circle, and you only have that one shot. If you're going to spar somebody, at least to me, it seemed like, okay, like I have, even though sparring is kind of a learning process as well, you're supposed to work on your weaknesses, and at the end of the day, you're there with somebody that can hurt you, right? So it's just that one shot to prove yourself and everything you've learned, and to see if you're doing it right or wrong, right? Win or lose. The same thing in business, right? You're preparing yourself, you're preparing your systems, you're preparing your scripts, you're preparing your entire operation to close one sale. And that sale, you're gonna do it, or you're gonna close it or not.
Yeah.
You're gonna do the job well done after you close it or not. So it's a great mentality to have preparation, and then you have to execute.
Yeah, it's discipline, isn't it? I think that's what it is more than anything. It's discipline, and also the realness that when you're in that ring, it's only you. No one. Your coach might tell you to throw a certain thing or do this or do that, but it's all you in that ring, and that's where you get under the spotlight. And that's where, if you haven't been training, if you haven't been running, if you haven't been sparring, if your diet's been off, if you've been drinking, if you've been smoking, it's all going to show. You're going to show in front of everyone how much you didn't train or prepare for this fight. And I think that is a massive weight on your shoulders and a massive responsibility for young men and women box too, I should say both. But for young men stepping in the ring, there's no better lesson. Like, all of the inputs that you're putting in building up to this fight are so important, and if you don't tick every single box, you're leaving it to chance. And it's possible that someone's going to beat you, and if they beat you, how can you possibly stand there and say I gave it my all when you know in the back of your mind, I skipped that run, I didn't turn up to that training session? It will eat you alive, or it should do. And if it doesn't, then you shouldn't be in the ring in the first place.
Yeah.